A cheap wall clock ticked too loud for a building this rich. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the kind that make every face look tired and every secret look guilty. A hallway runner held a clipboard so tight his knuckles turned pale, pretending he belonged there, pretending he was not watching history get disrespected in real time. Elvis Presley sat in a chair meant for assistants. No stage, no spotlight, no band, just a man in a dark hallway, shoulders relaxed, eyes lowered, hands resting together like he was praying or fighting the urge to explode. The runner had expected the king to fill the space with jokes, charm, noise. Silence showed up instead, heavy and sharp. Something was wrong, and everyone knew it. The runner had been told very casually that Elvis would be a little early. That meant smiles and handshakes, a quick meeting, a signature, a thank you. That was the script. That was what the building always did to stars. Bring them in, keep them moving, never let them feel like they could stop the machine. 2 hours passed. No meeting. No apology. Only a door at the end of the hall, closed like a mouth that refused to admit what it was chewing. A man in a suit finally stepped out, grinning like this was all funny. He glanced at Elvis like you glance at a package you left on a counter too long. "So sorry," he said. "We are running behind 5 more minutes." Elvis looked up and the runner felt it in his stomach. His eyes were calm, but they did not soften. He nodded once as if he was granting permission. The suited man slipped back inside and shut the door. Laughter spilled out for half a second before the latch clicked. That laugh did something to Elvis. It did not make him angry in an obvious way. It made him still. The tapping foot stopped. The small movement stopped. The face settled into something quiet and cold. The runner swallowed and shifted the clipboard. He wanted to believe this was just a scheduling mess. His mind tried to make it normal because normal felt safe. Then he heard a whisper from Elvis, barely loud enough to be real. "Not again." The runner froze. That sounded like a man remembering something he did not want to remember. Another assistant walked by and leaned down, voice low, trying to sound helpful. "Sir, do you want to wait in the private lounge?" Elvis did not move. His gaze stayed on the clock. He answered like someone measuring his words, not spending them. "How long has it been?" The assistant glanced at the runner, then back to Elvis. "A little over 2 hours." A slow breath left Elvis's nose. Not a sigh, not frustration, something closer to decision. The runner felt his throat tighten. Stars got kept waiting all the time. That was how power worked in buildings like this. You delayed someone to remind them they could be delayed. Yet this was Elvis Presley. So why was anyone doing it to him? The runner's eyes drifted to the closed door again. He wondered who was inside, and why they seemed so confident they could control the most famous man in the world. One thought landed hard. This was not about time. This was about breaking him. And if that was the plan, whoever planned it had not noticed something dangerous. Elvis was not shrinking in that chair. Elvis was sharpening. 4 words would come later, quiet and final. 4 words that would change the room, the deal, and the way everyone saw him. Control rarely looks like violence at first. A clean hallway can do the job. A closed door can do the job. A smile and a 5 more minutes can do the job as long as the person waiting believes the only way forward is to stay seated. Elvis had learned that lesson young, long before the gold records and screaming crowds. Men in suits had always found ways to move him like furniture. They told him where to stand, when to speak, what to wear, what to promise. They called it guidance. They called it business. He called it living inside somebody else's hands. Fame made those hands softer on the outside. It did not make them let go. This meeting was supposed to be a fresh start. That was the phrase floating around all week. A big network special, a primetime slot, a clean image, a victory lap that would remind the public that Elvis still owned the room. What nobody said out loud was the part that mattered. The deal came with strings, and strings always wanted to become ropes. Elvis was not naive. He felt the shift in the industry. New stars were rising. New styles were pushing in. People still loved him, but the machine loved whatever was newest, whatever could be packaged fastest, whatever could be controlled easiest. A crossroads like that does something to a man. It makes him question who is really driving. It makes him wonder if the crowd is cheering for him or for the memory of him. That fear followed him into the hallway. Not fear of performing. Elvis could perform in his sleep. Fear of being turned into a safe version of himself. Fear of signing his name and then watching someone else steer his voice. The runner did not know all that. He only knew what he could see. A famous man sitting in an ordinary chair, with ordinary lights on his face, waiting like the building had forgotten him. Another assistant walked by with a stack of papers and tried to be cheerful. "Mr. Presley, we are almost ready, just a few more minutes." Elvis gave the same small nod. Polite, controlled, no anger given away. It would have been easier if he had shouted. A shout is a storm that passes. His quiet felt like weather changing. The runner watched the wall clock move. Every minute landed with a little click, like the building stamping its power on the floor. A third apology came, then a fourth. Each one was delivered with a grin and eyes that did not respect him. The runner finally understood something he did not want to understand. They were not disorganized. They were testing him. One person sat behind the door and believed delay was a tool. That man did not want to meet Elvis as an equal. He wanted to meet Elvis as a man already softened, already tired, already grateful for the chance to be there. That man was the handler. The handler did not wear that title, of course. He was a decision maker, a gate to money, airtime, headlines, a man who had built his career on making stars feel like they needed him more than he needed them. The handler's favorite trick was simple. He would make a powerful person feel small before the handshake even happened. Waiting was the easiest way. Around Elvis, there were other players too. The gatekeeper from Elvis's side was nearby, the kind of person who spoke in soothing sentences and carried the unspoken job of keeping Elvis easy. This gatekeeper kept saying, "It is fine. It is just business. We will handle it later." Those words always sounded calm. Those words always meant surrender now, fight never. The third force was the building itself, the invisible pressure of money and schedules and reputation. You could feel it in the quick steps of assistants and the lowered voices. Everyone wanted this meeting to go smoothly, because smooth meant nobody had to admit they were scared. Elvis did not seem scared. He seemed tired of pretending he was not being pushed. His fingers rested on his knee, still as stone. The runner noticed something odd then. Elvis was not looking at the door as if he was desperate to get inside. His eyes kept returning to his hands, and sometimes to the watch on his wrist. He was counting. Maybe he was counting hours. Maybe he was counting the number of times he had swallowed disrespect in his life. Maybe he was counting how many times he had been told, "Just be patient." A man's patience can be mistaken for weakness until you see what he is doing with it. The runner shifted his weight and tried to focus on his clipboard, but his attention kept snapping back to Elvis. The hallway had turned into a stage without anyone admitting it. The audience was whoever walked past and pretended not to stare. A studio employee approached, voice low, trying to sound helpful. "Sir, do you want coffee? Water?" Elvis looked up and answered softly, "Water is fine." The runner moved quickly, almost grateful for a task. He returned with a small paper cup. His hand shook as he offered it. Elvis accepted it with a nod that felt strangely personal, as if he was thanking the runner, not the building. "Thank you," Elvis said. Those two words hit the runner harder than he expected. The man everyone called a legend was still polite to a kid holding a clipboard. That politeness was not weakness. It was control. Elvis took a small sip. The water did not seem to be the point. The motion seemed to settle him. The runner noticed the way Elvis's eyes moved, scanning the hallway once, then stopping on a framed picture on the wall. Some old executive handshake photo, suits smiling at each other like owners. Elvis looked away quickly. A memory passed behind his face. He did not share it, but the runner felt it anyway, like a draft through a crack in a door. Fame can fill rooms. Fame can also trap a man in rooms he hates. The gatekeeper from Elvis's side leaned in, voice gentle. "It is almost time. Please just stay calm. We need this." Elvis did not answer immediately. A pause hung there, sharp as a blade. Then Elvis said, "We will see." 4 words, calm and plain, but they felt like a door closing. A new apology arrived, delivered by a man who enjoyed the moment too much. Sorry about the wait, the man said. He got tied up 5 more minutes. Elvis watched him with a flat expression. All right. The man smiled, satisfied, and disappeared behind the door again. The runner's stomach turned. That smile was not an apology, it was a message. We can make you sit. The hallway grew quieter as time moved. The building began to feel bored with its own cruelty, which made it worse. Bored cruelty is the kind that lasts. Elvis stared at the clock again. The second hand kept sweeping, smooth and indifferent. A thought hit the runner, simple and terrifying. If they could do this to Elvis, they could do it to anyone. That is how power works. It picks the biggest name in the room and still tries to bend it, because bending the biggest name proves the room belongs to the power, not the talent. The runner walked a few steps away, pretending to check his notes. He did it because he needed air, because he needed distance from the tension pouring off that chair. As he moved, he caught something new. Elvis's right hand slipped into his pocket. His fingers touched something, paper. Elvis pulled out a small scrap, looked down, and wrote a few words with a pen he seemed to have been holding the whole time. The runner did not see what he wrote. He saw the care with which Elvis wrote it. No hurry. No nervous scribble. That was not a man asking permission. That was a man reminding himself who he was. Elvis folded the paper once. Then he folded it again. He pressed the edges down with his thumb like he was sealing a private promise. A fresh intrigue landed in the runner's mind. What decision had Elvis just made in silence? The gatekeeper noticed the paper too. His smile faded for a second. "You are all right?" the gatekeeper asked. Elvis slid the folded note back into his pocket. "Yes." That answer sounded too smooth, too prepared. Another hour crawled by. The runner stopped counting the apologies. From inside the room, muffled voices rose and fell. At one point, laughter broke out again, louder this time, like a group of people entertained by their own control. Elvis's jaw tightened for a heartbeat. Then it relaxed. That change felt important. Anger came and went, something deeper settled in its place. The runner was close enough now to hear fragments through the door when it opened briefly to let someone out. A man stepped into the hallway with a phone pressed to his ear. He spoke without lowering his voice, as if Elvis was invisible. "I told you," the man said, laughing. "If he wants this deal, he will sit. He always sits." The runner felt his heart jump. Elvis heard it too. Elvis's eyes lifted, slow. The tapping finger stopped completely. Even his breathing seemed to quiet. For the first time all day, Elvis did not look like a man waiting. He looked like a man deciding what kind of man he would be when that door finally opened. The runner wanted to step back, to disappear, because he suddenly understood how dangerous silence can be. A storm was not coming from Elvis's mouth. A storm was coming from Elvis's restraint. The hallway held its breath. Behind the door, the handler kept talking, as if the world had not changed. In the chair, Elvis went perfectly still, and the runner realized the worst thing you can do to a proud man is not make him angry. The worst thing is to make him choose. And Elvis had just heard the line that forced the choice into the open. If he wants this deal, he will sit. Elvis had been sitting for hours. Now the question was simple. Would he keep sitting and let them take more than time? Or would he stand and take back something no contract could ever give him? The second hand kept moving. Elvis did not. The hallway had a smell that never left. Coffee gone cold, paper, polished floors, the kind of place where people learned to smile while they held a knife behind their back. Elvis stayed seated, but the air around him changed after that overheard line. If he wants this deal, he will sit. That was not just disrespect. That was a belief, a certainty, a statement that said Elvis had already been measured and filed away as predictable. A predictable man is easy to own. Elvis did not flinch. He did not glare. He did not stand up right away to prove anything. He let the words sit in the silence with him, like he was watching them settle, like he was deciding how much of that poison to swallow. The runner stood a few steps away, pretending to look busy, yet his eyes kept drifting back. Elvis looked calm on the surface. Underneath, something was moving. It was not rage, it was clarity. The gatekeeper cleared his throat and lowered his voice. "Sir, do not take it personal. They are just trying to feel important." Elvis turned his head slowly. His eyes met the gatekeeper's, steady and flat. "It is personal," he said. The gatekeeper offered a nervous laugh, like laughter could soften the truth. "We just need to get through this meeting. Once we are inside, we can shape it." Elvis did not answer. That silence felt like a warning. Another assistant came down the hall with a tablet and a forced smile. "Mr. Presley, we are getting the room set. Any minute now." Elvis nodded once. The runner expected him to snap by now. Most men would. The longer Elvis stayed quiet, the more frightening he became because the quiet felt chosen. Minutes crawled, then another half hour, then another. The runner noticed how Elvis's body did not slump. His shoulders did not collapse. His posture stayed neat, controlled, almost too controlled, like he refused to let the building watch him fall apart. That was a kind of rebellion, refusing to look desperate. The gatekeeper leaned closer, voice softer. "They have sponsors on this, sir. It is not just a show. It is a whole rollout. If this goes wrong, people will blame you." Elvis looked at the wall clock again. "People already blame me," he said. Those words landed with weight, not dramatic, not loud, just honest. The runner swallowed. He had heard people speak about Elvis like a headline, like a rumor, like a shiny object. Hearing Elvis speak like a man felt different. It made the hallway feel smaller. The gatekeeper tried a new angle. "This is how the industry works. They test everyone. They test you, they test me, they test the staff. It is not about you." Elvis's mouth tightened slightly, not in anger and restraint. "They are not testing everyone," he said. "They are testing me." The runner saw the gatekeeper's eyes flick away. He did not want to admit it because admitting it meant admitting Elvis had a reason to push back. A door further down the hall opened and a man in a suit stepped out, phone to his ear, smiling like he owned the building. He did not even glance at Elvis. That was the insult, not the waiting. The pretending Elvis was not there. The man's voice carried. "Yeah, he is still out there. He will wait. He wants this." The runner felt heat rise in his face. He was not the one being humiliated, yet he felt humiliated just hearing it. Elvis heard it too. Elvis did not react. His fingers slid into his pocket and touched that folded scrap of paper again. The runner saw the movement, small and deliberate, like a man touching a weapon he promised he would use only when needed. The gatekeeper noticed. "What is that?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Elvis did not look at him. "A reminder," he said. A new curiosity loop opened in the runner's mind. A reminder of what? A reminder of who Elvis was. A reminder of what he would not do anymore. The gatekeeper tried to steer the moment back to the deal. "Listen, this special is big, prime time, national. It gets you back where you belong." Elvis finally turned fully toward him. "I am not lost," he said. A silence followed. It stretched long enough to make the gatekeeper uncomfortable. Then the gatekeeper said it, the sentence that always ruined men like Elvis. "Just sign and we can fix it later." Elvis's eyes did not blink. "Later never comes," he said. The runner exhaled without meaning to. That was the truth everyone knew and nobody said. Later never comes. Later is a word used to sell you the moment you are supposed to surrender. Elvis looked down at his hands again. His ring caught the light for a second. The runner wondered if Elvis thought about his own life in pieces. The early hunger, the first big money, the first time a suit told him what song to sing. Each time he gave a little to keep the machine happy. A man can give and give until he wakes up one day and realizes he does not recognize what is left. The gatekeeper spoke quickly, trying to keep Elvis from drifting into that place. "They are offering a great number. They are offering control, too." Elvis looked up. "Control," he repeated, almost like the word tasted strange. The gatekeeper nodded too hard. "Creative control, they have it written in. It is standard." Elvis did not smile. "Standard for them," he said, "not for me." The runner watched the gatekeeper's face. He was trying not to panic. He knew Elvis was inching toward a line, and once Elvis crossed it, the day would change. A new assistant approached with a stack of paper in hand. She looked young, nervous, like she had been told to deliver a message, and she did not like the message. She stopped near Elvis and spoke softly. "Mr. Presley, they asked if you can wait in the lounge around the corner. It is more comfortable." The runner heard the lie inside the polite sentence. They did not want Elvis comfortable. They wanted him out of sight. They wanted the hallway empty so they could pretend the test had not happened. Elvis looked up at her and his voice softened just for a second. "Honey, it is not your fault," he said. Her eyes watered a little. She nodded and hurried away. That moment showed the runner something else. Elvis could be gentle even when someone tried to hurt him. Elvis could be kind even when he was being played. That kind of self-control does not come from weakness. It comes from someone who has been cornered many times and learned how to breathe through it. Elvis leaned back slightly in the chair. The runner heard him speak again, quieter this time, like he was talking to himself more than anyone else. "I used to think if I just kept my head down, they would stop." The gatekeeper frowned. "Stop what?" Elvis stared at the closed door. "Stop treating me like I belong to them." The gatekeeper's voice turned more urgent. "We can walk in there and make it work. We can play the game." Elvis answered without lifting his eyes. "I have played the game," he said. "I have been losing." Those words carried something raw beneath them, not just anger, regret, exhaustion, a man tired of pretending he was fine. The runner's mind jumped to the rumors he had heard outside this building. People talked about Elvis like he was a story that was already written. They talked like they knew him. They did not know this version. They did not know the quiet fight happening inside his chest. Another 30 minutes passed. The hallway grew emptier. Assistants stopped checking on him as often. That meant the handler was getting comfortable. The more comfortable a man becomes, the more careless he gets. That carelessness showed up in the next crack of the door. Voices spilled into the hall for a moment, clearer than before. A man laughed and said, "He will sign, he has to." Someone else answered, "Just make him sweat a little longer." The runner felt sick. Then he heard the handler's voice, calm and smooth like a salesman. "We are not begging him. He is begging us. That is how it works. You keep the star waiting until he remembers who writes the checks." The door shut. Silence slammed back into place. The gatekeeper looked at Elvis quickly, like he wanted to see if Elvis had heard it. Elvis had. Elvis's face did not change much. Only his eyes did. His eyes looked older. Elvis spoke slowly. "He thinks I am begging." The gatekeeper rushed to patch the moment. "They talk like that to feel big. They do not mean it." Elvis's voice stayed calm. "He means it," he said. A new intrigue hit. Elvis was not only listening to the insults. He was building a picture of the handler's belief. That belief was the real enemy. Because if the handler truly believed Elvis needed him, the handler would push harder. The gatekeeper tried to distract Elvis with details. "The special is designed to remind America who you are. Big songs, big moments, family-friendly, they want you smiling." Elvis's lips moved in a small, humorless half-smile. "Family-friendly," he repeated. The runner could almost hear what Elvis did not say. Family-friendly meant safe. Safe meant filtered. Filtered meant controlled. Elvis straightened his jacket slightly, like he was preparing for something. The runner noticed his breathing. Slow, measured. That was the breathing of a man about to enter a fight, not a meeting. The gatekeeper leaned in again. "Please," he said, "do not make this worse. You have people counting on you." Elvis looked up. "Who?" he asked. The gatekeeper hesitated. "The label, the network, your team." Elvis waited. The gatekeeper swallowed. "You." Elvis's gaze stayed steady. "I have been counting on me for a long time," he said. "I am still here." That line carried pride and sadness together, like two hands gripping the same rope. The runner saw Elvis's hand slide into his pocket again. Elvis touched the folded paper. Then he did something new. He unfolded it. Just once. He looked at the words. The runner could not see them, yet he could see the effect. Elvis's jaw relaxed. His shoulders lowered slightly. It was as if the paper gave him permission. Elvis folded it again and put it back. The runner's curiosity burned hotter. That note was not a reminder of the deal. It was a reminder of dignity. A new assistant returned with a different tone. He had the kind of voice people use when they think they are offering you a gift. "All right, Mr. Presley," he said. "They are ready for you now." Those words should have been relief. They sounded like a leash being loosened. Elvis did not stand immediately. The assistant blinked, unsure. He probably expected Elvis to jump up, grateful, smiling, ready to please. Elvis looked at him and asked, "Who is ready for who?" The assistant's smile stiffened. "Excuse me." Elvis's voice stayed quiet. "You said they are ready for me. Are they ready to treat me like a man?" The assistant swallowed. "Sir, it is a meeting." Elvis nodded slightly. "Then let it be a meeting," he said. The gatekeeper forced a laugh, trying to smooth it over. "He is just tired. It has been a long day." Elvis rose slowly, not hurried, not dramatic. His movement was measured, like he refused to give the building a single inch of frantic energy. The runner felt his own pulse pick up. The hallway suddenly felt like it was shrinking around them. Elvis took one step toward the door, then paused. He looked down the hall again, toward the exit, toward open air, toward the world that did not smell like polished floors and cold coffee. For a moment, the runner thought Elvis might walk out right then. Elvis turned back to the gatekeeper. "Let me tell you something," he said. The gatekeeper leaned in, expecting another warning. Elvis's voice dropped even lower. "If I go in that room and I sign something that makes me smaller, I will never forgive myself." The gatekeeper's eyes widened. "We can adjust it," he said quickly. "We can negotiate." Elvis nodded once. "Good," he said. "Then we will negotiate." He moved toward the door. The assistant opened it and stepped aside. Sounds spilled out. Voices, papers, the faint clink of ice in a glass, a room full of men who were comfortable. Elvis walked in, and the runner followed just far enough to see before he stopped at the threshold like a witness who knew his place. Inside, the handler sat at the head of the table, smiling like a man who believed the day had gone exactly as planned. "Elvis," the handler said, standing halfway like he was doing Elvis a favor. "There he is. Sorry about that. Crazy day." Elvis did not smile. Elvis did not apologize. Elvis did not rush forward. Elvis looked at the handler, then looked at the chair across from him. Elvis sat down slowly, but the way he sat was different from before. He did not sit like a man waiting. He sat like a man placing himself at the center of the decision. The handler slid a folder toward him immediately, like he wanted to end this fast. "We have got something great here," he said. "This is the biggest special of the year. It is a win for everyone." Elvis listened. He nodded once. The handler mistook the nod for surrender. His smile widened. "We just need your signature and we can move forward." Elvis glanced at the folder, then back at the handler. He spoke softly, almost gently. "Before I read anything," Elvis said, "I want to know one thing." The handler leaned back, amused. "Sure, ask." Elvis's eyes held him. "Why did you keep me waiting?" The question landed like a glass hitting the floor. The room went quiet in a new way, the way it goes quiet when someone asks the one question nobody planned for. The handler's smile twitched. He tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Elvis, it was just scheduling." Elvis did not move. He did not blink. He waited, still and patient, forcing the handler to sit inside the question. That was the reversal. Elvis had waited for hours. Now the handler was the one being made to wait. The runner stood in the doorway, holding his breath. A new cliff edge formed right there, sharp and dangerous. Because the next words out of the handler's mouth would tell the truth. And the next words out of Elvis's mouth would decide whether this meeting became a handshake or a wars. The handler's smile stayed on his face, but it did not reach his eyes. "Why did I keep you waiting?" he repeated, as if Elvis had asked a funny question instead of the only question that mattered. A few men around the table shifted in their chairs. One of them cleared his throat like he wanted to remind Elvis of the unspoken rules of this room. Stars did not ask that question. Stars played along. Stars pretended they did not notice disrespect, because noticing disrespect meant demanding dignity. The handler gave a small shrug. "Scheduling, you know how it is. We had calls, we had meetings, it was chaos." Elvis nodded once, slowly, like he was letting the lie finish talking. Elvis's voice stayed calm. "I sat out there for hours," he said. "You were laughing." The handler's smile tightened. "Now, Elvis, nobody was laughing at you." Elvis leaned back slightly, shoulders relaxed, but his eyes held the handler in place. "If it was not about me," Elvis said, "then it should not have happened." A quiet fell over the table. The handler glanced at the folder like it was a shield. He tapped it with 2 fingers. "Look, I do not want to waste time. We have got a special ready to go. Biggest slot we can offer, biggest money. Everybody wins. Let us stay focused." Elvis looked at the folder, then at the handler again. "Focused on what?" he asked. The handler's voice warmed, smooth, and confident. "Focused on giving America the Elvis they miss. Big hits, big smile, family-friendly, simple." The word simple hung in the air like an insult dressed as praise. Elvis's mouth barely moved. "Simple," he repeated. The handler nodded. "That is what people want." A man to the handler's right chimed in, trying to help. "We are talking about a nationwide moment, Elvis. All eyes. This is legacy." Elvis listened. He nodded once like he had heard that speech 1,000 times. Elvis kept his voice quiet. "You keep saying legacy," he said. "You keep saying America, you keep saying people." His gaze sharpened. "What about me?" The handler laughed softly, the laugh of a man who believed he was still in control. "Elvis, you are the center of it. You are the brand." That word hit like a slap. Brand. Not man. Not artist. Brand. The room was so still the runner in the doorway could hear his own breathing. Elvis did not explode. He did not shout. He did not perform anger. Elvis simply looked down at his hands for a beat, as if he was checking whether they still belonged to him. Then Elvis looked up and asked, "Do you hear yourself?" The handler leaned forward, still smiling, still trying to keep the tone light. "Come on, that is just business language." Elvis nodded slowly. "Business language is how people forget they are talking to a human being," he said. A few men looked away. That sentence made them uncomfortable because it was true. They were used to stars begging. They were not used to stars nomming the game out loud. The handler's smile began to fade. He pulled the folder closer to Elvis, pushing it across the table like a final offer. "Here it is," the handler said. "You sign this and we move. You do not sign and, well, the network has to move on. I cannot hold a primetime slot forever." The gatekeeper from Elvis's side leaned in, voice quick and nervous. "We can adjust details later," he whispered. "Just keep the slot." Elvis did not look at him. Elvis kept his eyes on the handler. Elvis spoke softly, "I have a question." The handler lifted his eyebrows like he was indulging a child. "Sure." Elvis said, "Do you want me smiling or do you want me alive?" The room stayed frozen. The handler blinked. "Alive, what does that even mean?" Elvis's eyes did not move. "It means I come out there and I am real," he said. "No filters, no polishing, no pretending I am fine." The handler laughed again, but it sounded thinner this time. "Elvis, the audience does not want real. They want Elvis." Elvis nodded once. "I am Elvis," he said. "That is the problem. You think Elvis is a costume." The handler's jaw tightened. He glanced at the other men, then back. "All right," he said, voice firmer. "Let us be clear, this special is built for ratings. Sponsors pay for a certain kind of image. They are not paying for pain. They are not paying for controversy." Elvis listened, steady. Then Elvis asked one short question that changed the air. "So I do what you want," Elvis said, "and I get the slot." The handler leaned back, satisfied. "Exactly," he said. "We are on the same page." Elvis nodded slowly like he was agreeing. Then Elvis said, "And if I do not?" The handler shrugged. "Then there is no special. It is not personal. It is business." Elvis stared at him for a long second. A new layer of tension rose because Elvis did not look angry. Elvis looked tired. A tired man can be persuaded. A tired man can also become dangerous when he stops caring what he loses. Elvis's hand slid into his pocket. The runner saw the movement from the doorway. Elvis touched that folded scrap of paper. He did not pull it out yet. Elvis asked, "You kept me waiting so I would sign fast, right?" The handler's smile returned in a controlled way. "I kept you waiting because I had a full day." Elvis nodded. "You kept me waiting because you wanted me to feel like I need you," he said. The handler's smile dropped again. "That is not what I said." Elvis's voice stayed calm. "That is what you believe," Elvis said. The room grew quiet in a different way. The men around the table could sense the handler losing his grip, and they did not like it. A man like the handler lived on control, and control was slipping. The handler sat up straighter. "Listen," he said, sharper now. "You have had your time, let us get to it." Elvis leaned in slightly. "All right," he said, "let us get to it." The handler slid a pen toward Elvis. The pen rolled and stopped near Elvis's hand like a dare. Elvis looked at the pen and did not pick it up. The handler waited. Seconds passed, then more. The handler cleared his throat. "Elvis." Elvis finally opened the folder. He did it slowly, like he wanted the room to feel every second. Elvis scanned the first page. His face stayed neutral. That was what made the room uncomfortable. They could not read him. The gatekeeper leaned forward, whispering, "It is fine, it is standard." Elvis kept reading. Elvis turned one page. He stopped at a line and tapped it with his finger. Elvis looked up. "This says I do not choose the set list," he said. The handler waved a hand. "That is just wording. We choose a set that fits the show." Elvis kept his eyes on him. "Fits who show?" Elvis asked. The handler's voice stayed smooth. "The network show." Elvis nodded. "So not mine," he said. The handler's smile tightened. "Elvis, do you want this special or not?" Elvis turned another page slower. Elvis found another line. "This says the network has final approval on any spoken remarks," he said. A man across the table said quickly, "That is to keep things clean, Elvis. You know, no surprises." Elvis looked at him. "No surprises," he repeated. Elvis leaned back. "That is what you want," he said. "No surprises means no truth." The handler's patience cracked. "Truth does not sell," he said. Elvis's eyes sharpened. "Truth is all I have left," he said. Silence spread again. The handler pointed at the pen. "Sign it," he said, and the words sounded like an order. The gatekeeper from Elvis's side leaned closer, voice trembling. "Please," he whispered. "If you fight them, they will punish you." Elvis turned to him slowly. "They already did," Elvis said. The gatekeeper looked confused. "What do you mean?" Elvis's voice stayed calm. "They kept me outside like I was a kid hopping for a chance," he said. "They did it on purpose. That was the punishment." The handler tried to laugh it off again, but the laugh was gone now. He sounded irritated. "Elvis, you are being dramatic." Elvis shook his head once. "No," he said, "I am being honest." The handler leaned forward, eyes hard. "You are not in your little Memphis studio anymore," he said. "This is network. This is real business." Elvis held his gaze. "I know what real business is," Elvis said. "Real business is what you did in the hallway." The handler's cheeks flushed. "You do not understand the pressure," he snapped. "We are risking money here." Elvis nodded once. "I have risked my life," he said quietly. That line landed like a weight. Nobody spoke. Elvis's hand slid into his pocket again, and this time he pulled out the folded scrap of paper. He set it on the table. He did not open it. He set it down like a boundary. The runner felt his chest tighten. That small piece of paper looked more powerful than the entire folder. The handler stared at it. "What is that?" he asked, suspicious. Elvis looked at him. "A promise," he said. The handler scoffed. "We do not sign promises, we sign contracts." Elvis nodded. "That is the difference," he said. The handler pushed the folder forward harder, making it scrape the table. "Enough," he said. "Either you sign or we are done." Elvis stared at the folder. Elvis stared at the pen. Elvis looked up. His voice stayed almost gentle. "You kept me waiting because you thought I was desperate," Elvis said. The handler opened his mouth to deny it. Elvis cut him off calmly. "I have been desperate," Elvis said. "Not for your approval, not for your money. I was desperate for peace." The room went still again. Elvis's eyes drifted for a second, like he was looking at something far away, something inside himself. Elvis spoke again, quieter. "I used to think peace was silence," he said. "I used to think peace was doing what everybody wanted so nobody got mad." He looked back at the handler. "That is not peace," Elvis said. "That is surrender." The handler's voice rose sharp. "Fine," he said. "Call it whatever you want. You sign or there is no show." Elvis nodded once. Elvis leaned forward slightly. Elvis did not reach for the pen. Elvis said, "Then we do it live." 4 words. Not loud. Not dramatic. Final. The room reacted like someone had cut the power. A man on the other side of the table laughed, confused. "Live? What are you talking about?" Elvis kept his eyes on the handler. "You want a special," Elvis said. "I will give you one live." The handler's face tightened. "That is impossible." Elvis shook his head once. "It is possible," he said. "It is just risky." The handler leaned forward, anger rising. "We do not do live with you," he snapped. "No offense, but live means anything can happen." Elvis nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "that is the point." A man beside the handler said, "Elvis, sponsors will not allow it." Elvis looked at him. "Sponsors do not sing," he said. "I sing." The handler slammed his palm lightly on the table, not a full slam, just enough to show control. "You are not listening," he said. "If it is live, we lose control, we lose timing, we lose safety." Elvis leaned back slightly calm. "You lose the leash," he said. The handler's eyes narrowed. "You are trying to embarrass me." Elvis shook his head. "You embarrassed yourself," he said. "You just did it quietly." The gatekeeper whispered urgently, "Please do not do this." Elvis turned to him. "I am doing this," Elvis said, "for me." The gatekeeper's voice broke a little. "This could ruin the deal." Elvis's eyes stayed steady. "Then let it ruin it," he said. The handler pointed at Elvis like he was scolding. "You are making a mistake," he said. "You need this special." Elvis stared at him, calm as stone. "No," he said, "you need it." The handler laughed sharply. "We will replace you," he said. "We will put on something else. We will move on." Elvis nodded once. "Then move on," he said. A new silence fell, heavier than the earlier ones. The men around the table looked at each other, scared. They had pushed too far. They had expected Elvis to cave. They had built their confidence on the idea that Elvis always sat. Elvis stood up. Not fast. Not dramatic. He rose like a man who had already decided. The handler leaned forward. "Sit down," he said, and his voice carried an ugly edge. Elvis did not sit. Elvis looked at the folder on the table like it was a dead thing. Elvis looked at the handler again. "You can keep the contract," Elvis said. "You can keep your rules." He tapped the folded scrap of paper once with his finger. "I am keeping this." The handler's voice turned cold. "If you walk out, there is no deal," he said. Elvis paused at the edge of the table. Elvis looked at him and spoke softly, the word simple, the meaning huge. "Then there is no deal," Elvis said. Elvis turned and walked toward the door. The runner stepped back instinctively, heart hammering as Elvis passed him. For a second, the runner saw Elvis's face close up. It was not triumphant. It was not angry. It looked relieved. Behind them, the handler shouted, "You are making a career-ending decision." Elvis did not turn around. Elvis kept walking. The gatekeeper hurried after him, panicked. "Wait," he pleaded. "Please, we can still fix this." Elvis stopped in the hallway. He did not face the gatekeeper yet. He stared ahead, eyes focused on nothing. Elvis spoke quietly. "Fixing it later is how they keep you small," Elvis said. He turned then, and the runner saw the hurt inside the calm. Elvis said, "If I sign that, I am not Elvis. I am a puppet wearing my face." The gatekeeper swallowed, shaking. "What do you want me to do?" Elvis answered without hesitation. "Walk with me," Elvis said. The gatekeeper hesitated for half a heartbeat. That half heartbeat said everything. Fear, money, pressure, the need to be liked by the room. Elvis watched him. Elvis did not beg. Elvis waited. The gatekeeper finally nodded like he was surrendering to the truth. "All right," he said. They walked down the hallway together. Behind them, the conference room door remained open, and the handler's voice carried again, now quieter, urgent, trying to regain control. "Get him back in here," the handler hissed. "Do not let him leave." Footsteps rushed in the room. People moved. A chase began, not with running, with panic. The runner stayed near the wall, eyes wide, watching the building reveal itself. The building did not like losing. A man in a suit stepped out quickly and called after Elvis, voice forced cheerful. "Elvis, come on, let us not do anything we will regret." Elvis kept walking. The suited man hurried closer. "We can talk," he said. "We can adjust, we can find a compromise." Elvis did not stop. The suited man's tone hardened. "You realize what you are doing, right? You are blowing up a primetime slot." Elvis finally stopped and turned his head slightly. His voice stayed calm. "I am not blowing up a slot," Elvis said. "I am blowing up a trap." The suited man blinked. "Trap." Elvis looked at him like he was tired of explaining. "You keep a man waiting to remind him he is owned," Elvis said. "I am not owned." The hallway fell quiet again. The runner felt the hairs on his arms rise. Elvis turned away and kept walking. The suited man stood there, stunned, because he could not understand what had just happened. Elvis Presley had refused the machine. Elvis Presley had said 4 words that ripped control out of their hands. "We do it live." The runner understood something then. That meeting was never about ratings. That meeting was about dignity. And Elvis had just chosen dignity over comfort. The runner watched Elvis move toward the exit, and a strange fear hit him. If Elvis walked out of that building, the world would see the fallout. The network would retaliate. The headlines would twist. The machine would try to punish him for saying no. Elvis knew it. Elvis walked anyway. The last thing the runner saw before Elvis reached the doors was Elvis touching that folded note in his pocket again, like a man touching a heartbeat. A promise, not to the network, not to the crowd, to himself, and the building behind him was already preparing to strike back. Because when a powerful man refuses to sit, everyone who benefited from his silence starts screaming. And this time, the screaming was just beginning. The doors closed behind Elvis with a soft click, yet the sound did not feel soft. It felt like a switch flipping. Inside the building, the air changed fast. People stopped pretending it was just a misunderstanding. Phones came out. Voices rose. Shoes moved quicker. The machine had lost control of its main gear, and the machine did what machines always do when a man refuses to obey. It panicked. The runner stayed near the hallway wall, half hidden, watching the aftermath spread like a spill. 2 assistants rushed past him, whispering hard. He walked. He actually walked. A third voice answered, sharp and angry. "Get him back now." The words were not even about Elvis as a person. The words were about property. The network acted like a man had stolen something from them, even though all he had done was stand up. The gatekeeper, still walking beside Elvis, kept glancing back like he expected someone to grab them by the collar and drag them into the room. His breathing sounded shallow. Fear lived in his chest, and Elvis could hear it. Elvis did not speed up. Elvis did not slow down. His pace stayed steady, like he had already accepted the cost. Outside, the sunlight hit his face, and the runner saw something strange through the glass. Elvis did not look victorious. Elvis looked lighter, like a weight he had carried for years finally slid off his shoulders. The gatekeeper spoke in a rush once they were away from the door. "They will make calls," he said. "They will poison the story. They will say you were difficult." Elvis kept walking. "They already do," he said. The gatekeeper tried again. "They will say you are unstable. They will say you are impossible." Elvis nodded once. "They will say anything except the truth," he said. The gatekeeper asked, "What is the truth?" Elvis stopped at the curb. Cars rolled by. The world moved like nothing happened. That was the strange part. A man can change his life in one moment and the rest of the street still looks normal. Elvis looked at the gatekeeper. His voice stayed quiet. "The truth is I sat in that hallway and I remembered I am a man," he said. "Not a brand, not a slot, not a product." The gatekeeper swallowed. "That forward line, you realize what you did, right?" Elvis's eyes lifted slightly, as if he could still see the conference room in his mind. "I said what I needed to say," he answered. The runner did not know why he followed them out to the edge of the sidewalk, yet he did. He stayed a few steps away, unsure whether he was allowed to be there, yet unable to leave. Something inside him wanted to witness the rest. He had watched Elvis endure humiliation in silence. He had watched Elvis reclaim his dignity with 4 calm words. Now he needed to see how the world answered back. A black car pulled up at the curb. A driver stepped out and opened the rear door, eyes down, professional and careful. The gatekeeper hesitated. "We should talk," he said. "We should plan the next move." Elvis looked at him. "The next move is simple," he said. "I do not crawl." Elvis got into the car. The gatekeeper stood there for a beat, then followed. The door closed. The car rolled away, and the runner stayed on the sidewalk, feeling like a kid who had just seen behind the curtain of a magic trick. The curtain did not hide magic. The curtain hid power. Back in the building, the panic turned into strategy. The handler did not chase Elvis because of feelings. The handler chased Elvis because of precedent. If Elvis could walk away from a contract, other people might start believing they could walk away too. A machine built on obedience cannot survive a man saying no. So the handler made calls. He called sponsors. He called executives. He called anyone who might help squeeze Elvis back into the box. The story would be shaped, polished, and sold. He was difficult. He was emotional. He was unreliable. Those labels were cheaper than admitting the truth. The truth was that a powerful man tried to humiliate Elvis, and Elvis refused to be humiliated. The runner learned later, through whispers and fragments, how fast the building moved once Elvis left. Meetings happened immediately. The folder got revised. New numbers got floated. New promises got offered. A room full of confident men suddenly started acting like they were the ones running out of time. That was the irony. They kept Elvis waiting for hours as a lesson. Elvis taught the lesson back in 4 words. We do it live. Live meant risk. Live meant truth might leak out. Live meant Elvis would not be filtered, not even for a primetime audience. That terrified them. A day passed. Then 2. Calls reached Elvis from people who never returned calls before. Voices that used to talk down suddenly spoke with respect. The gatekeeper could barely sleep. Every ring of the phone felt like punishment arriving. Elvis stayed calm. Elvis had made peace with the consequences the moment he stood up. That is what the world never understood about that hallway. The hallway did not weaken him. The hallway gave him time to remember. People always talk about Elvis like he was built for stages, like he was born to own crowds. That is true. Yet the hardest rooms in his life were not stages. The hardest rooms were small. The hardest rooms were private. The hardest rooms were the ones with contracts and smiles and men who believed they could decide what kind of Elvis the world deserved. The machine wanted a safe Elvis. The machine wanted the version that made everyone comfortable. Elvis wanted something else. Elvis wanted to be alive in front of people again. The runner, months later, heard that the special happened in a different form. A compromise got reached because the network realized something cold. If Elvis refused, they did not only lose a show. They lost a moment that could not be replaced. That is what the handler never understood. You can replace a time slot. You cannot replace a man who carries a whole era in his voice. The new deal had different words. The set list shifted. The approvals got loosened. People who loved control still tried to hide it in fine print, but the fine print did not bite the same way anymore. Elvis had drawn blood from the machine. Once a machine bleeds, everyone sees it as not a god. The gatekeeper met the runner one evening in a hallway that felt less cold than the first one. He looked older, like the day had aged him. He spoke like a man confessing. "I did not think he would do it," the gatekeeper admitted. The runner asked, "Do what?" The gatekeeper answered, "Refuse." The runner remembered Elvis's face when he stood. Not angry, not loud, relieved. The gatekeeper said something next that stayed in the runner's mind. He was not fighting them, the gatekeeper said. He was fighting himself. He was fighting the part of him that wanted to be liked. That was the real legacy moment. The world saw a performance. The world did not see the decision that made the performance possible. The real story happened before any camera rolled. It happened under fluorescent lights, with a cheap wall clock ticking, with men laughing behind a closed door. It happened when Elvis heard, "He always sits," and decided he would not always sit. Years later, people argued about Elvis's later career. They argued about choices, health, the people around him. They argued like his life was a puzzle meant for public entertainment. The runner carried a quieter truth. Elvis could fill stadiums, yet still had to fight for respect in a small room. That fact reframed everything for him. It meant Elvis was not only battling fame. Elvis was battling ownership. There is a difference between being loved and being free. Elvis had love in endless supply. Freedom was the thing he had to fight for. The most haunting part was not the confrontation. The most haunting part was the note. The folded scrap of paper. The runner never saw what it said that day. He only saw Elvis touch it like it mattered. He only saw Elvis place it on the table like a boundary. He only saw Elvis keep it close when he walked away. Months after, the runner got a chance to ask. It happened by accident, in a back corridor after another meeting. Elvis was passing through with the gatekeeper, moving fast. The runner stood aside, not wanting to bother him. Elvis noticed him anyway. Elvis stopped for a second, his eyes softened. "You were the kid with the clipboard," he said. The runner nodded, stunned. "Yes, sir." Elvis smiled a little. "You looked like you wanted to throw that clipboard at somebody," Elvis said. A nervous laugh escaped the runner. "I wanted to," he admitted. Elvis's smile faded into something warmer. "That is good," Elvis said. "That means you still know right from wrong." The runner swallowed. His heart hammered. He decided to ask the question that had lived in his chest. "Sir," he said quietly, "that note, the one you kept folding, what did it say?" Elvis looked at him for a long second. His eyes did not look like a performer's eyes then. They looked like a man's eyes, tired, sharp, honest. Elvis slid his hand into his pocket slowly, like he was checking if the reminder still existed. He did not pull it out. He simply nodded once, almost to himself. "It said," Elvis answered, "do not beg." 3 simple words. Not fancy. Not poetic. A lifeline. The runner felt a lump rise in his throat. "You wrote that in the hallway?" he asked. Elvis nodded. "I wrote it when I heard them laughing," he said. "I knew what they were doing." The runner asked, "And the 4 words, you already planned that?" Elvis's mouth tightened slightly and he shook his head. "I plan to not surrender," he said. "The words came when I needed them." Elvis turned to leave, then paused as if one more truth needed air. "I have begged a lot in my life," Elvis said, voice low. "Not out loud, inside, begged for peace, begged for people to stop pulling at me." He looked back at the runner. "That day," Elvis said, "I stopped." Elvis walked away. The runner stood there, shaken. The note was not about the network. The note was not about the special. The note was about a man choosing himself. That is why the story lasts. Most people think power is loud. They think power is a man slamming a table, making threats, taking space. Real power can be quiet. Real power can be a man sitting in a chair while the world tries to shrink him, then standing up without raising his voice. Real power can be 4 words spoken calmly to a room that expected obedience. "We do it live." Those words did not only change a deal. Those words changed the way Elvis saw his own name. The public remembers Elvis as the king. That is a crown the world put on his head. In that hallway, Elvis did something harder. Elvis chose to be a man before he was a legend. He chose dignity over approval. He chose truth over polish. That choice does not show up on a record sleeve. That choice does not play on the radio. That choice lives in the unseen places, the rooms before the stage, the moments before the cameras. It lives in the simple line he wrote to himself. "Do not beg." The runner carried that line into his own life. Years later, when bosses tried to humiliate him, when meetings dragged on to test him, when smiles hid manipulation, he remembered Elvis in that chair. He remembered how still Elvis became. He remembered how Elvis did not rush. He remembered how Elvis stood. The world had seen Elvis sing. The runner had seen Elvis refuse. That refusal became the runner's definition of legacy. Not gold records. Not applause. Not headlines. Legacy was a man protecting the last piece of himself that money could not buy. As the years rolled on, fans kept chasing the myth, the costumes, the legend. The runner kept thinking about the hallway. He kept thinking about the clock. He kept thinking about the laugh behind the door. He kept thinking about the 4 words that pulled the power out of the room. The runner understood, then, what most people never notice. The most important Elvis moments were not always on stage. Some of them happened in silence. Some of them happened in rooms where nobody clapped. Some of them happened when the crowd was not watching. And the greatest twist of all was this: Elvis did not need to be rescued by the world. Elvis rescued himself. He did it without shouting. He did it without begging. He did it with 4 words that reminded everyone, including him, that the king was not a puppet. He was a man, and a man can stand up, even after hours of waiting, and change everything. If that hallway moment stayed with you, comment one thing. Would you have kept sitting, or would you have stood up like Elvis did? Hit like if you believe dignity matters more than a deal, and subscribe for more untold Elvis stories where the real battle happens off stage. The world remembers the songs, but the unseen moments shape the legend. Drop live in the comments if you think Elvis did the right thing.